Thank you, Mahima. I would like to start with stating that how this concept of this book came about. And it was my kind of friend and colleague, Ambassador Nalin Suri, who said, why don't you write something on aviation and foreign policy together? And I said, I was very keen. I said, no, but this is a very odd topic. And he said, well, try. So anyhow, so this has finally emerged, whatever I've written. And I hope it makes sense. Alright, now coming to the topic of the not an expert, but I have said my whole thing has been that what can aviation provide to the foreign policy, and I found that after reading the aviation policy, which was a draft for 10 years and it came out in 2016, I found that there was no linkage with foreign policy. Now, policy in government goes through interministerial thing, it's approved by the cabinet, and I found that everybody is sitting in their own silos. Possibly nobody made any comments about the name. Okay, so what is it that we are looking for, and what is it that we should aspire for? I think one of the things, and there I have used Ambassador Rajiv Sikri, who has written a book on foreign policy, on saying that diplomacy is not restricted only to diplomats and bureaucrats sitting in rooms, but is also people-to-people contact. And this is what he has emphasized in his book, and I took that as a starting point, saying that yes, we need people-to-people contact, and which people-to-people contact, where, what is our emphasis. So we have today in our neighborhood, one is the Act East policy, which General V.K. Singh was to had announced in the Lok Sabha, and unfortunately he is not able to come, and I find that unfortunately he has sent a message, which Mahima will read out, because he was held up. He was assigned some other work. I think he has to take around the Chief Minister of UP, who was suddenly landed up in Delhi. So, or whatever the reason, but anyhow, he's not able to make it. But he had defined what in the Lok Sabha what Act East policy was, and in that he had mentioned connectivity is an important thing. And there I again, between Ambassador Rajiv Sikri and Minister of State then for External Affairs and now for Ministry of Civil Aviation, and that's why we chose him, because he has held both the portfolios. So what is it that we want? Now, two things are there. We have in our neighborhood the Act East policy, where 10 ASEAN countries and a few more, another half a dozen countries are involved. And on the west, I don't want to discuss Gulf, because with Gulf we have excellent air connection, but the other countries, the CIS countries, Iran and others, where we are doing a lot of work from the foreign policy side, but the connectivity is lacking. Now, shall we, if I take up the issue of say Act East policy, we find that over the years, now that we'll have to go into the aviation policy also, but over the years, basically there are 3 international hubs which India uses as their hubs, which is Singapore, Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur. Out of the 10 ASEAN countries plus other countries, the air connectivity is very poor. Even if you have to go to, say, Angkor Wat, which should be, I mean, China sends 3 aircraft a day for their passengers. We can't even go there. Then there are so many other countries, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam has just started, Indonesia and Philippines, both very poorly connected. And why is that? So I will try and tell you why is this happening. And when you want Act East policy, then isn't it necessary that you have good connectivity, not just that you connect through different routes but have direct non-stop connectivity to various points? And why is it not taking place? And in specific, when India's outbound policy is actually growing very fast, it's going faster than the inbound policy. The tourism into India is slower, but the Indians going abroad is much faster, the growth there. And that is unfortunate that we are not able to find routes to so many areas in the Act East area or in the West area, except for Gulf, but the other CIS countries and other places. So what is happening? Why? I've tried to analyze that. So coming to aviation policy, while there is no link, but aviation policy I've also analyzed, especially from the outbound point of view, that the Indian airlines, firstly, how is it that the major airports, I mean, for example, Singapore, and then Bangkok, and then Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and on the other side is starting with Dubai and other airports in the Gulf, came up and Indians started hubbing there. When they wanted to go abroad, all they did was to fly to these locations. There was no hub in India. There was no point in India where they would go. So it was at the cost of India, because Indian policy was all wrong. And when I say all wrong, in retrospect, at that time there could have been so many other reasons. We didn't have a good airport to begin with. Now we have airports. We could not, so we encouraged these airports. They became big, they became excellent, and then they grew into international hubs. Now we are talking about having our own international hub. Now, having an international hub is easy to say, but it's not easy to implement. And why is it not easy to implement? Just because unless you have good connectivity, nobody is going to come to your hub and connect to other places. And that's where we lack. Our airlines are not going abroad as much as they could. In fact, the proportion of foreign airlines coming into India, I mean, we have bilaterals are 50%. You Indian airlines get 50% share, foreign airlines get 15% share of a particular country when you have a bilateral negotiation. But the foreign airlines are able to complete their 50% quota, while we are not able to complete it. And this has been happening over the years, and this is where the whole thing lies. That why are airlines not good enough? When even countries like Thailand and others have very strong airlines. Well, part of the reason is over time, from the time of monopoly of Air India and Indian Airlines to opening of the thing, there was always segregation. Air India was always given grandfatherly treatment or grandfatherly rights. They had to say right of first refusal was with them. Then came, the Jet and some other airlines, the legacy airlines still, who got the right. Then the newer airlines were given the third-rate treatment, and then they were brought in a policy of 5 years and 20 aircraft, which are totally discriminatory. No other country had that policy. So many airlines which could have gone and covered the bilateral air services availability were not allowed to. So these were deficiencies which came up, and therefore India in a way suffered. Now so that's one aspect of the civil aviation policy, where we did not allow, more or less deliberately, our airlines to go abroad as much as they could have. They had the potential to. So what is it that we are looking for? We are looking for, in my view, good connectivity to countries in the East and CIS countries in the West, except for Gulf area. But before Gulf, we are looking for good connectivity. And how can we provide? So what happened? In 2003, Prime Minister Vajpayee made a very bold announcement that we will allow 7 flights a week. I mean, just an open announcement, of course, on bilateral basis, but for